So thank you, Natalia, for coming to join us here. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions and get to know you a little bit, and we'd like to share that with other people. So let's start off with who you are, a little bit about your background, and what do you do?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's so good to be here. So my name is Natalia. I'm currently in Switzerland. I'm a trained psychotherapist and a clarity breathwork practitioner. I love to travel, and tomorrow I'm going to Italy again, actually.
Tomorrow you're going to Italy? And what are you doing in Italy?
I'm going to be doing some writing, and also I'm going for the Shadows in the Sun shadow work retreat in Tuscany.
Oh,
So I'm very excited about this.
that sounds very exciting.
Mhm.
Um, so I understand that you do breath work, and I'm going to ask the question as a complete novice. What is breath work? I mean, we all breathe. What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? Excellent question. The big deal is that we don't breathe fully as adults. Most of us are not taking full breaths. And as a result, we are constantly oxygen deprived. So when you start breathing, and in clarity breath work, we use conscious connected breaths. You start to oxygenate your body, your cells, you bring in more energy into your system, and things that were stuck for years, emotional blockages, energy starts to come up to the surface. And this is a very easy, safe, and beautiful way to release anything that's holding you back.
Can you describe for me what it feels like to have one of those blockages come up to the surface, and then how do you wind up dealing with it?
Mhm. Let me think. Well, I'm going to use myself as an example. So when I was doing my practitioner training level 1, I was working specifically on trying to heal my relationship with my mother. So one time during the session, I started to feel a kind of pain that was moving through my shoulder down into my hand, and it was really interesting because, I mean, in general, I'm in a very good shape. I do Bikram yoga, and that pain and tension, it seemed like it just came up out of nowhere. But at the end of the session, I had the memory from really, really early on in my childhood, and it was about me and my mom, and I remembered what happened. And in that particular situation, she was pulling me by the hand, and I didn't want to go. So I had a good cry,
Mhm.
and the pain and tension was gone.
And then how was your life different after that?
Wow, in so many ways, but I mean, it's a long story. Maybe I'll write a book about this someday, but I had a very difficult relationship with my mom. I ran away from home when I was 18 and went all the way to Canada. And, like many people were asking me, like, wow, you're so young and so far from home, you must miss your mother. But the reality was, I was so happy to be away from her. And, but at the same time, of course, I was disappointed on many levels, that I couldn't have this kind of relationship that many of my friends had. I was not supported, I couldn't get advice. And so I didn't actually think that I could heal my relationship, our relationship. I was kind of, because I accepted that it's always going to be like that. And so last year, when I was doing my practitioner training, I was able to study what happens during birth in great detail for the first time. And it's really quite amazing, because as a psychotherapist, I realized that I know nothing about birth. I don't know what happens during birth. I don't know what women go through. And so during the training, I did so much healing, and I had the chance to speak to my mom and get the details of my birth story. And what I found out was that my mom had multiple miscarriages before I was born, and she was really scared. And just, finding out all of that information and contemplating my circumstances of my birth allowed me to come to such a place of compassion and understanding for my mom. And during sessions, I was able to release so much anger and resentment and disappointment and grief. So it just transformed our relationship, and I feel so much lighter, just completely different. I didn't realize how heavy I was,
Yeah. Mhm.
and that there's so much energy that was going towards that relationship, even though I thought that, okay, it doesn't matter, it's too late and stuff. So yes, it changed my life, it really. And my mom, she's so happy that finally she has a daughter she can talk to.
I imagine that also added to what you can put the direction in which you can put your energy out towards whatever it is you're consciously working on.
Yeah, exactly. Because like sometimes if you don't realize, we don't understand, we're not aware of how much of our psychic unconscious energy is being used up by by that kind of trauma, by what happened in the past. So we think that, okay, like, I'd like to do this, I'd like to, I don't know, like, start a new project, but we don't have enough energy. Like, where's the energy going? And so when you get unblocked, when you release this kind of stuff from your body, because all of it is in the body, you get more energy, you become more productive, you become more creative. It's really, like, it's so transformational. And the beautiful thing about breath work is that change can happen very quickly.
It sounds very familiar, similar to a lot of other types of energy work where it is that quick. I mean, it can be instantaneous, but it's not always.
Mm-hmm.
What made you to decide to become a practitioner of breath work?
Mm-hmm. Such a good question. When I got my master's degree in 2010, I was trained in cognitive behavioral therapy and client-centered counseling. And almost immediately, as soon as I started working with clients, I realized that something is missing, like, something is missing, and that my training is not enough. And me and my clients often got stuck. Like, they were conscious of the changes they wanted to make, they knew what to do, but it was very difficult to release the old pattern. And so basically, I've been looking for that missing piece for many years, and finally found it. So clarity breathwork for me is this missing piece, because in my experience, I I discovered that it's not enough to be conscious of your problem, of the origins of your problems. You need to embody through some kind of embodiment work, like breath work, the new self, the new identity, the new positive thought that you want to be thinking. And before that, you need to release the old patterns, the old energies from the body.
So you say embody the new. What do you mean by that specifically?
What do I mean by this? Okay, so during breath work, a breath work session is not happening in silence. So usually, and well, I would say very often, clients start to get insights and they start to verbalize them. It's kind of like, sometimes it's kind of like an affirmation, right? And so when you are during breath work, many people experience a kind of like expanded state. Okay, they feel lighter, they feel more relaxed, they feel kind of like, even like sensuous pleasure, they feel more open, they feel that something is happening, they feel really good. Actually, for many people it can be a very pleasurable state. And so when in that state they verbalize their intentions, okay, for example, they say, I am the most important person in my life, it feels right. Like, it doesn't feel, like they're making it up. So by saying it several times, and sometimes people just keep on saying, this affirmation, or they're inside, many times, and they really feel it, they breathe into this, they embody it with every cell of their being, and they become it, right? So it's not just like, kind of like intellectual thing that you can realize in a psychotherapy or coaching session. It's really kind of like bringing it into the body.
That's a really excellent description of some of the work by Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, where they talk about really, and also heart math. I did go to one of those trainings, and all of that information kind of combines to say essentially what you just said. You want to get into that feeling state and experience the feeling that you want, and it doesn't take much to experience that. You just allow yourself to go there. That's really awesome. All right, so let's you talked a little bit about how a session might go, and that it's more of an experience together where you're verbalizing kind of what you're experiencing. How would you describe one of your sessions for a potential client? What could they expect from that?
Okay, so in general, if it's a first session, it lasts about 2 hours. In the first hour, I collect history, what happened during birth and conception, early childhood, and anything that's relevant to the issue that they want to work on. Okay, and then I give instructions to how, for the breathing itself, if the person is doing it for the first time. And then we start. Sometimes there is a little guided meditation or yoga nidra. And during breath work itself, I'm guiding, I'm making sure that the client is following the technique. I'm making suggestions, I'm asking questions. Some people, want to be in silence, they don't want to speak a lot. Some people actually want to say what's coming up for them, but it's completely flexible. And after the breath work, there is a 5-minute integration, and usually I give homework. So for example, a client might have to write a forgiveness letter, or start practicing meditation or gratitude practice of some kind. So yeah, kind of like this.
Cool. That sounds like a fun session to me. All right. How frequently, you said the first session is 2 hours. What are the other sessions typically?
Other sessions, because, well, I would say other sessions are like an hour and a half. Okay. Yeah, because I don't have to take history and, like get all of the details.
But it kind of still depends on what the client's working on and how they respond in the session.
Exactly.
So basically, if they were to book off or block off 2 hours for this experience, it would be appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question I have is, can this be done virtually, or does it all have to be done in person?
Yes, it can be done virtually, and actually it's quite nice because, a client can have this experience in the comfort and safety of their home. They don't have to travel anywhere. They don't have to spend money on transportation. So yes, it works actually very well online.
Cool. Do you have a success story that would be a really good example of how this can change? You gave us an example of yourself healing with your mother, but do you have a client story that you can share?
Yeah, thank you for asking this. Yeah, what comes to mind is a recent story. I've been working and supporting this really amazing, successful woman who basically suffered from a burnout towards the end of the pandemic. She was under so much pressure. She was running her own business. She had to make sales, during the pandemic when people were extremely reluctant to buy. She had a very small daughter. I think her daughter was like 7 months at the time. Yeah, and her own mother, my client's mother, who came for a visit, got stuck in their house because when the country shut down, she couldn't return home. And so my client was basically stuck for, I think it was 6 months, between her mother and her husband, trying to take care of her little girl and running a business. So she was honestly like
pulled every direction very intensely.
I know. Seriously, it was crazy. So she had a meltdown, and a couple of weeks ago during our session, she had this just simply beautiful, beautiful breakthrough. She started to cry, and I asked her, why are you crying? What's coming up for you? And she said what I actually said before, because it was kind of like on my mind. I'm the most important person in my life. And the second thing she said, there is nothing I have to do. I don't have to do anything if I don't want to. And it sounds very simple, right? But for many women who are putting themselves last, and she was not an exception, it was very profound.
Yeah.
And again, because it was not just a mental thing, it was really embodied. She felt so much relief she just gave herself permission. I don't have to do anything. I don't want to. So she implemented new boundaries with her husband as a result of this breakthrough. And she started implemented self-care every day. Every day she gives herself permission to go for a massage, to have a yoga class, or just simply disconnect from everyone. And it's just such a beautiful experience. Her light came back. Like
Yeah.
her eyes started to sparkle. She's back. And I'm just so honored and proud, that she was able to transform like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's an awesome story. I think there's probably a lot of those stories out in the world. And I think as a collective, we're all working on these kinds of things that are really helping us to help other people. And we wind up essentially getting to the place where we really can fix things in the world from a space that feels good.
Mm.
Well, thank you for joining us. I would like to ask, how would you suggest that people reach out to you and connect with you if they are interested in doing the breath work with you?
Okay, well, it's very simple at the moment. Just email me at natalia@freedomandmagic.com.
Okay,
And I would love to hear from you and support you if it's the right match.
sounds terrific. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome. Bye.